Welcome to California Highways Route by Route. This podcast explores everything about the numbered highways in California, from Route 1 along the coast to US 395 along the Sierras, from Route 8 in the south to Route 139 in the north.
Brought to you by the California Highways webpage and Gribble Nation.
I'm Daniel Fagan. I do the California Highways webpage at www.cahighways.org.
I'm Tom Fear. I'm one of 4 admins at gribblnation.org.
This is episode 1.10, Highway Numbering, the County Signed Routes. Last time on California Highways Route by Route, we continued our exploration of highway numbering in California. This has been a 4-part series. This is part 4. We started with episode 1.07 with the state highway numbering. In episode 1.08, we looked at the U.S. highway system and how it was numbered in its history. Last episode was everything interstate. In 1.09, we looked at the history of the interstate system, the history of California's interstates. We explored chargeable versus non-chargeable miles. We looked at the general logic behind interstate numbers, and we looked at the exceptions to the rules and why they are.
In this episode, we will look at the county signed route system, county roads and routes, the history of the system, divisions and signage, the state of the system today. This is the last episode of our 4-part mini-series, Highway Numberings. But the story isn't complete, as there are numerous other numbering systems in the state, bike routes, forest routes, internal county systems.
Yeah, I've got some information on things like the forest routes up on my pages. But, the internal county systems are sort of an area into themselves.
Yeah, they can be wildly varied. Like, you have some that emulate what Caltrans does, like San Benito County, whereas you have others who do only mountain routes like Tulare, Kern, and Monterey, some that don't do any at all.
So what are county roads? And the simple answer is anything not maintained by the state, city, federal government, or some private organizations like homeowners associations. The federal government has responsibility for roads on military bases and national parks. And that's why you'll see things like State Route 120 suddenly stop at the park line and then pick up again later on the other side of the park. And any signage you see in the park is being done by the park, not Caltrans. Cities have responsibility for non-state roads within their limits, excepting private maintenance. What are private maintenance districts? As I said, homeowners associations, things like Disneyland has their own roads that they maintain, and large things like that. Now, counties have internal reference systems for their highways that we're not always privy to. Many counties use a numbered road system that originates at county lines. You'll see this a lot in the central and northern part of the state. And some counties even have online databases of their roads. And this was a question I got recently. It was either on Facebook or something like that. If you go to my maps page, I've got links to where the GIS stuff is for Caltrans. We talked about this when we did our post-mile episode. And you can actually go there, and there are pages where you can see things like state highway lines, and that shows each route as a line, and you can click on it and get the data or a post-mile. Well, these linear referencing systems also exist at the county level. And you can do a search online for San Diego County Linear Referencing System or San Diego County Road Database. And you can find them, and you can see all the roads in the county, who maintains them, their state, county, and so on. And it's really interesting. I know San Diego has and I've seen it for a few other counties.
San Benito County is the one that comes to mind because it actually had every single road that wasn't state highway listed in there. So they actually had internal route numbers, which almost mimic the legislative route numbers prior to 1964 on the state side.
Yeah, San Diego had the same thing.
So the California County Route Marker Program started in 1958. By 1997, there was 2,950 local highway miles that were in the program. Most of the county sign routes were added between 1958 and 70. There were some exceptions. Lassen County A1 was created in 1983. Lassen A28 and 29 were created after 1983. San Bernardino County 66 was created in 2011. Per Caltrans, there's been no real activity since 1983. The database was deleted from Caltrans computers in 1994.
San Bernardino County actually had to come to me in my webpage to get the specifics on the signs and the numbering system because Caltrans didn't have it anymore when they wanted to sign Route 66's County Route 60.
Which is basically almost a one-for-one overlay of freeway US Route 66. Largely in the Mojave Desert. Kind of starts from Victorville and almost goes all the way out to Needles.
Yeah, it pretty much follows the old Trails Road at that point. I'd say once 66 leaves Barstow, I forget whether San Bernardino 66 is applied to the old trail segment between Barstow and Victorville.
It is.
Okay.
It's actually signed through there.
Now, the one thing looking at this I'm curious about is if Lassen didn't create A1 until 1983 and they were creating these things sequentially, was there an A1 before 83 that was created in the 58 to 1970 period that eventually acquired a state number?
Something I'm going to have to check in some of the Gaussian maps that I have because that might actually pop up.
Yeah, you would think there would be.
Yeah.
So what routes are signed as part of the county route system? There appears to be a few criteria that counties used when signing these routes. First, the routing was formerly and there are numerous examples of that. The routing is a continuation of a state highway, and there are good examples of that, like J59. The routing is a major connecting road in the county. I would say things like N8 are an example of that, the Las Virgenes Canyon. The routing is of major importance of general public interest, or the routing is constructed to sufficient standards to guarantee safe passage. You can trust the road if it's got a assigned route number. And the routes were selected by the Board of Supervisors of the county. Although I would think now, probably most of these boards of supervisors have no idea what this route is. I think it had much more importance in the past. The way these routes were signed is that counties participating in the program used a pentagon with rounded corners, 18 by 18 or larger, with yellow letters on a blue background. And this is not just a California thing. These are used throughout the country, this signage standard. I think it was actually included in the MUTCD. I know they're used in New York. I've seen them in other states. And most states just use a simple numbering system. You can also see an interesting variation on this sign if you're in Las Vegas. For a portion of the 215 Beltway, the portion always gets directions in Vegas confused. That is on the west side of the 15. It's sort of the southwest quadrant of the 215 is Clark County 215 Beltway, and they use a variation of the blue pentagon. California used a letter and number approach, where letters designated the county groups and numbers were assigned by the county with no particular preset.
Florida and Michigan were very big on county route signage, which is basically the exact same shield, like you said, that you see in California.
Do they just use the straight numbers?
Florida actually uses the grid numbers that are part of the state road system, whereas Michigan uses letter suffixes like California does. County group assignments. I mentioned prefixes just a second ago. These kind of denote the groupings of where the county sign routes are located within the state. So the A and B prefixes are located in Northern California, specifically Butte, Glen, Lassen, Modoc, Holness, Shasta, Siskiyou, Tehama, and Trinity County. Most use A, Butte uses B. I don't think there's any in the B group that are really signed anymore, but then we'll get into that a little bit later on a list that I got. The C and D denote Northern Coastal. Del Norte, Humboldt, Lake, Marin, Mendocino, Napa, San Francisco, and Sonoma. Sonoma County uses the C grouping. Del Norte uses D. None of the other counties in this group participate.
Continuing on with the county group prefixes, the E and the F groupings pretty much cover Sacramento and the mother load counties. Alpine, Amador, Calaveras, Colusa, El Dorado, Nevada, Placer, Sacramento, Sierra, Solano, Sutter, Tuolumne, Yolo, and Yuba. And those that have signs use E. No one really uses F. And there are a fair number of E. The G and H groups are on the Central Coast. That's Alameda, Contra Costa, Monterey, San Benito, San Mateo, San Luis Obispo, Santa Clara, Santa Cruz. Those that have signs use G. Santa Clara in particular has a really strong county expressway system that they've developed. And I think it may even go into some of the neighboring counties there. And there's some really significant G routes, especially in the Monterey, SLO, San Benito area. Continuing with the county group assignment, J, K, and L are heavy in the San Joaquin Valley counties: Fresno, Kern, Kings, Madera, Mariposa, Merced, San Joaquin, Stanislaus, and Tulare. Those that have signs use J. No one really uses K or L. And there are some really extensive county sign route networks in the Central Valley that I'm sure we'll touch on in a minute. And then the remaining letters, N, P, R, and S, are down in the southern part of the state: Imperial, Inyo, Los Angeles, Mono, Orange, Riverside, San Bernardino, San Diego, Santa Barbara, and Ventura. Los Angeles uses N. There's a little bit of N in Orange County. Riverside uses R. Orange, San Diego, Santa Barbara, and Imperial use S, with a heavy use of the S numbers in San Diego and Imperial. San Bernardino didn't use a letter when they finally created one, and the other counties just really don't participate. Now what we're going to do is talk about some of the significant routes in each of these letter groupings. We've got some we selected, and I'm sure we're going to extemporaneously add a few more.
So Tehama A8 is a former routing of US 99. Siskiyou A10 provides recreational access to Mount Shasta. Siskiyou A12 is known as the 99-97 cutoff in reference to US 99 and US 97. Lassen Polmas A21 was formerly Legislative Route 183. Lassen A27 is a former segment of Route 36. Butte D1 was part of Legislative Route 30 and became part of modern Route 162 to the new Bidwell's Bar Bridge over Lake Oroville. Del Norte D8 accesses the ruins of the Douglas Memorial Bridge, which was part of US 101, which was destroyed during the 1964 Christmas floods. Sacramento Placer E2 runs along the Grant Line Road in Sunrise. The Grant Line segments will be part of the Capital Southeast Connector. Solano Yolo E7 includes parts of former US 40 and Route 113. Sacramento Yolo E9 parallels Route 160 on the other side of the Sacramento River. Tuolumne Calaveras E15 serves as a cutoff from Route 108/Route 120 to Route 4. E15 incorporates an old segment of Route 4 in Copperopolis, namely Main Street. Tuolumne Calaveras E18 serves as a cutoff from Route 49 to Route 4, bypassing a significant amount of mileage between Sonora and Abbott's Pass. San Benito County G1 ascends Fremont Peak State Park. Santa Clara County G8 accesses the Quicksilver mining community of New Almaden and the Almaden Expressway. Santa Clara County G2, the Lawrence Expressway. G3, Page Mill Expressway. G4, Montague Expressway. G5, Foothill Expressway. G6, Central Expressway. G8, and the Almaden Expressway are a significant network of expressways in southern San Francisco Bay Area. Monterey County G12 connects from US Route 101 in Prunedale to Route 129 in Watsonville. Monterey County G14 follows the historic course of El Camino Real, the Spanish iteration of the Auto Trail, and accesses Lake Nacimiento. Monterey County G15 follows Metz Road and has a really cool tunnel view from Soledad to King City. Monterey County G16 cuts through the Santa Lucia Mountains from Salinas Valley to the Monterey Peninsula, and is really one of the few roads across Santa Lucia Range in the Big Sur area. Monterey County G17 follows the western bank of the Salinas River and follows much of the historic alignment of the Spanish iteration of El Camino Real. Monterey County G20 serves as a cutoff from Route 68 near Monterey to County Route G16 in Carmel Valley via the Loyalist grade.
Now, there are a bunch of these also that I think connect and go around, Hunter Ferguson or Hunter Liggett base in that area.
Yeah, G14 and G18.
And do you have any idea why they maybe never made Nacimiento Ferguson, I think that road, sign route? Because that seems to be a pretty significant route.
It is actually, a lot of it is Forest Service Road, and some of it is actually Military Reservation Road.
So they just couldn't do it. Otherwise, they probably would have. Because that's one of the other few roads that goes across that mountain range. And right now, with Big Sur being down, it's pretty vital.
Yeah, that one actually even needs to be rebuilt. I know it's funded and it should be regraded this year. It was heavily damaged by fire. But yeah, that's a really kind of critical one because like if you're in the middle of Big Sur and there's a mudslide, that's like the only way traditionally you would be able to get out of there without detouring back the way you came.
I know someone who has to plan whenever they leave because they live near some of the major slides, and it becomes like a 2 or 3 day detour whenever they have to go into town now.
Yeah, I remember during Mud Creek in 2017, I actually took that road out to the coast several times, and it was pretty interesting because we had a lot of freight vehicles on it at the time. And the last 7 miles of it, it is pretty harrowing. It's about a 14% grade, and it's basically just like a single lane, meaning like 15 feet wide. It's wide enough for 2 vehicles, but it's very narrow.
You probably have to do the same sort of protocols we did on the camp road, where if you're coming up and you've got someone coming down, and one of you has to try to go to the side to let the other pass.
Yeah, the one good thing was it's so open because it's right on the cliff. You could actually see who's coming and going pretty easily and kind of plan in advance for it.
I wonder if kids today remember the honk twice on a blind curve.
They don't. It's rare I run anybody that actually does that anymore.
There were, 15 or 20 curves on the road to Hilltop, and you had to always honk on them.
Yeah, the funny thing is when I was the first time I did that in 2017, I actually ran into 2 18-year-olds when I got back up to the top from Limekiln State Park. They asked me, is this the way to Big Sur? And they're like, it's some automatic transmission car. I'm like, yeah, it is. But like, do you guys know how to shift this thing into low gear? And they didn't. So I had to explain to them what to do so they would make it down without melting their brakes. The J routes. San Benito, Fresno County J1 crosses Pinoche Pass and follows much of what was briefly signed as Route 180 during the late 1930s. San Joaquin, Alameda, Contra Costa J4 follows Byron Highway over Plan Route 239, and this might actually get built to state highway standards. It might be one of the first new state highways in quite a long time. Stanislaus Calaveras J14 was once the longest county sign route, with the segment south of Turlock becoming Route 165. Stanislaus Merced Mariposa J16 presently is the longest county sign route and accesses the Gold Rush communities of Snelling and Hornitos. Tulare J28 incorporates a segment of former Route 190 near Lake Success, namely north of it. Tulare County Route J29 incorporates much of what was the original alignment of Route 65. Tulare County Route J37 accesses Bulch Park and Mountain Home State Forest, and once was part of the planned Lone Pine Porterville High Sierra Road. So this is kind of the prototype for Route 190 on both sides of the Sierras that never really got finished. But interestingly, Tulare County Route J37, to my knowledge, is the only county sign route still signed within Tulare County. Tulare, Inyo County J41 accesses Sherman Pass Road via 9 Mile Canyon Road, and this is the only non-state highway Sherman Pass Road that crosses the Sierra Nevada mountains. Merced, Stanislaus, Tuolumne County J59, as we mentioned earlier, functions as an extension of State Route 59 north of Snelling. Likewise, Tuolumne and Mariposa County J132 acts as an eastern extension of Route 132 from Coulterville to Route 120.
When I was adding the maps to all my pages and doing the county route segment, I would draw the maps, and, since I was doing county routes, I'd do the main county routes and then do lines for the county routes that cross them. And boy, does that Central Valley, they may not be signed anymore, but they had a really strong grid system of signed county routes, especially down in Fresno, Merced, that whole area.
Tulare mainly. Tulare County had the most county signed routes of any county at one point.
And it really was a strong grid system, and you could just see it. Now it's my turn. I'm going to be talking about the southern part of the state. And in the southern part of the state, LA County has a batch of main routes. So you had routes like N1, which followed Malibu Canyon, N2, which incorporates former US 99 on the old Ridge route, and was eventually planned as the realignment corridor for Route 48 and Route 138. So what had been planned for the post-64 138 was really going to be a new road along what was some of N2, but that ended up being built, so the corridor of Route 48 became Route 138 in that part, and it's an interesting history. N3 is Angeles Forest Highway, which also would have eventually been a state highway that never got built, the freeway. N7 is a continuation of Route 107, and that itself may be a reference to the original Route 7, because 107 was an extension of Route 7, and that, of course, was Sepulveda Boulevard. N9 incorporates parts of Mulholland Highway and Canaan Dune. I know when I was driving to the camp I went to as a kid, which is near Yerba Buena Road and PCH, I would always take Canaan Dune and go across N9, and there's some really nice tunnels along N9. Turning to Riverside, Riverside R1 became Route 243 on the Banning-Idlewild Highway, and Riverside R3 is largely overlaid upon the original sign route 83 and 79. Now you're asking, what about R2? That was a road, I think it was Iron Eagle Mine in eastern Riverside County, and I'm not sure whether it's even signed anymore because the mine is closed.
It's not, or at least it wasn't a decade ago when I went up there to look around.
Now, San Diego really has an extensive route system, really good and signed route system. I was just down in Escondido and saw this. So S6 accesses the Palomar Observatory. I want to say it's things like S7 and S8, Valley Road and Mission Road. Those are former US 395, an old alignment of 395 up through Bonsall in that area. San Diego S21 incorporates much of what was US 101 north of San Diego. And there were a couple of other San Diego routes that are significant, but they're all in that area. And you don't realize how much open land is between freeways until you start looking at the S routes. There are also a whole batch of S routes that are up in the area near Julian. I know there's one that was an old stage road that comes off of 78 or 79, something like that in that area. And there are some that just go across between San Diego County and over near the Salton Sea, that area. Santa Barbara S20 became the new alignment of Route 1 during 1988. So Santa Barbara has one S route. Imperial S78 was an extension of Route 78 on the Ben Hulse Highway. And Imperial S80 was part of US 80. And lastly, we have San Bernardino 66. That, as we've noted, was the part of US 66 that was formerly a state route, and when they decommissioned US 66, it was unsigned for the longest time, and San Bernardino finally added that as a county signed route to give recognition. And any other of the county signed routes that you'd like to mention, or how are the various counties doing in signing these routes?
It really depends. Mentioned Tulare County already, and how that had the widest system but only signs one route presently. You get some pretty significant variance from county to county. Like, as we're recording this, I'm in Monterey County right now, which has several notable G series routes. Some are signed very well, some are signed very poorly. And what I've noticed is lately, when the signs get replaced, they omit the letter from the sign. So you have a bunch of like reference shields on US 101 for County Route 18 when it should be G18. Then you get into other counties, which kind of like San Benito County, if the sign disappears, it's never going to get replaced. Then you have others like Tuolumne, which are constantly replacing the signs with newer shields, and they look really good. So there's not a lot of uniformity to any of this, given you got all these county road departments and everything, and that really shouldn't be, I guess, too surprising. Some have better funding than others.
Now, you've been talking about the central part of the state.
Yeah.
San Diego does a really good job of something. Mm-hmm. I know when you were last down there.
Yeah, it's really good. When I go to work down there, it's very easy to spot the S routes.
L.A. County, in fact, I tried to get an interview from L.A. County, and they don't know about the system anymore. They pretty much signed those routes at the beginning and the end of the route, and there's nothing along the route. I have no idea whether Santa Barbara signs their one route.
No, they don't.
And I remember when I was up in the Lassen area, they seemed to sign at least the ends of the route. I remember there's like Rim of the Eagle Highway or something, Eagle Highway, that comes off of Route 39, 139 in that area. And that was signed, and some of the stuff up in the forest there, but I don't know how well they are. And they have another road system that they sign up.
Yeah, MoDOT specifically has their own. Lassen's usually very, very good because Lassen uses a lot of their A routes on bypasses of state highways.
Yeah, there's one up by Susanville, as I recall.
Yeah, there's a couple going over Honey Lake.
So it's really a mixed bag. If you want history, the county route system is fun to explore, but it's really hard to find them. You really need to go to the old maps. Next time on California Highways, well, we're coming down to the end of the season. We've looked at numbering. So next time, we're going to look at how state highways get their names. This has gone through a number of different eras, from names based on location to names given by the State Highway Commission to almost the current era where highways are being named constantly by the legislature, and there are little signs put up with names nobody uses and about people no one knows about. But you can find out about them on my page. But next time we will talk about how highways are named. For more information, visit the highway numbering section over on cahighways.org. We actually have a specific section for all the county routes, and we have a highway numbering section on county routes. Tom, do you have any specific Gribble Nation blogs where you explore some of the county route numbering? I think you had some on the G route.
Yeah, quite a few on the G routes, like G15, G16, G1. My personal favorite is J37, just kind of given the scale, the Lone Pine, Porterville, High Sierra Road. That was supposed to cross over Moki Pass, and it was really, really super ambitious. So it's not really so much just because it's the county sign route, it's just a cool story.
We'll have links to all of these things that we can hunt down on the show page at caroutebyroute.org. And details for the specific routes, of course, are on the specific route pages on cahighways.org and Gribble Nation.
As always, information on this episode is available on our website, caroutebyroute.org, where you can also leave us comments on this episode. This episode is also available on our anchor.fm home, anchor.fm/CA Route by Route. Remember to visit our archive of past episodes, including our 6-part series in the history of the state highway system. Join us as we continue exploring California route by route.
And I'll note anchor.fm has renamed themselves Spotify for podcasters, but the old link still works and the new link is longer and harder to remember. This episode was written by Daniel Fagan and Tom Fear, edited and produced by Daniel Fagan. Our opening theme is I Like to Be by the Seaside by John H. Slover Kine. And if you have an opening theme you'd like us to use or consider, please send it along. Just make sure it's something we can use without having to pay licensing. And we'll start using it in season 2 if we get one we like. Episodes are recorded using freeconferencecall.com. This podcast is a product of California Highways at cahighways.org and Gribble Nation at gribblnation.org. And that's about it. Anything you want to add on the county signed route system?
Really, if you're looking for something unique as far as like a cool road to drive, usually the county routes are a pretty good way to go. They go through kind of a lot of the lesser known communities, particularly in the Sierra Nevada foothills or some of the coast ranges. A lot of the roads tend to be pretty haggard by state highway standards, so I often hear people complain about like potholes on state highways, but then I tell them like go out to San Benito County on County Route J1 and tell me how you feel after that. But yeah, there's just a lot of really unique older corridors that just were never part of state highways or were relinquished that I think are worth exploring and definitely looking into, especially if you are into driving back roads.
And sometimes they're really fun to drive. I always enjoy driving Las Virgenes Canyon, Malibu Canyon. I always enjoy driving Canyon Dune. It's got some wonderful curves, some wonderful scenery, and the view, especially on Canyon Dune or Malibu Canyon, is you crest the hill and see the Pacific Ocean. Can't beat. So we will talk to you next time when we talk about highway naming.